Hi, I'm Wolfman Jeff, and today I'm going to be reviewing The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. The Hobbit was Peter Jackson's prequel to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It was based on J.R.R. Tolkien's hit children's book, The Hobbit. And Peter Jackson and Warner Brothers Films stretched the book into 3 films. And I'll be kind of going over a little bit of that as I do the review, hopefully. So I'll kind of tell you some hits and misses about that. And I'll start off with this one. Like I said, the first movie. The first movie of the Hobbit trilogy franchise, An Unexpected Journey, reintroduces everyone to the world of Middle-earth. It had been years since he did the Lord of the Rings trilogy, so, I mean, I know I was, and a lot of people were very excited about seeing a new movie set in Middle-earth. It didn't matter if it was The Hobbit or something else. Tolkien did some other books, and, you know, everyone was just excited to revisit the world. Peter Jackson took over for Guillermo del Toro, who was originally going to direct the Hobbit trilogy. Well, back then it was, I think, just 1 or 2 Hobbit movies, but Peter Jackson was going to sit this trilogy out, and Guillermo del Toro pulled out, so Peter Jackson stepped back in. And in some degree, I think that was a good thing, because the films very much feel like they fit into the Lord of the Rings again. And I don't know if Del Toro could have done that as well, because Guillermo del Toro, very gifted director, very talented, but he's got his own distinctive style. And while that might have been kind of cool, having kind of a goth style, I don't know if it would have worked as well in The Hobbit. The only bad part about this is because Peter Jackson came back, it kind of felt a little like we got too much of the same. And that's not always good either. So it was kind of a trade-off. We got a director who very much knew the material, very much knew the world, because he helped create the cinematic world, at least, of, you know, Middle-earth. But you also kind of got a lot of rehashing. He did a lot of long establishing shots again. And it's not, they were epic in scope in Lord of the Rings, but when you're doing a Hobbit movie and it only has a certain amount of material, having all of these establishing shots feels very much like it was padding the film, which I'm sure they were doing because they stretched it out into 3 movies. So I don't know if that was a good call. As far as a lot of the other technical aspects of the film, I mean, the production design, they were all on target. Special effects were decent. Whedon always does a good job. I mean, even if they phone it in to a degree, it's never going to be bad either. At least up until this point. I don't know how they're going to be after The Hobbit, but they're pretty on the ball lately. So, you know, the cast, they got a lot of them. A lot of the original stars come back for this particular movie. You know, Ian McKellen came back as Gandalf. Ian Holm came back as the older version of Bilbo. You even had like Elijah Wood come back in a small role, cameo as Frodo. And it was a nice reintroduction to the world of Middle-earth. But one flaw I had with the movie, and I know a lot of people did, it wasn't just me, is they introduced all these dwarf characters, and for the life of me, with the exception of the main dwarf of Theron Oakenshield, I couldn't tell you any of the dwarfs' names. You know, in the Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring, You know, I can name you every member of the Fellowship. I can name you most of the supporting characters. I can name you most of the people in Rohan and you know, the Hobbiton. And in this movie, I couldn't really tell one dwarf from the other dwarf for the most part. And I think that was a problem, especially for as long as the movies are. You can't really connect with a character if you don't even know their names, if you don't really know their characteristics. And to go on, considering the dwarfs are, along with Bilbo Baggins and Gandalf the Grey, their main characters, to have that many main characters and really not know anything about them, you're not invested in them. You don't really care. Peter Jackson really should have spent more time developing each character, giving them their own little moment, make them really stand out, and then everybody would have been highly invested in these characters. I think he was a little too reliant on the fact that most of us have read The Hobbit, and I've read The Hobbit, but I read it in high school, and I don't remember a lot about it. So when I watched this, a lot of it was refreshing. I mean, a refresher, so to speak. So I didn't remember the name of the dwarves from the books because it's been a number of years, and I could reread it. But when you're making a movie, especially as long as the Hobbit movies are, you shouldn't have to go back to the source material to just get a name, you know. So I think that was my major gripe with the movie. You know, I found it for the most part to be fairly entertaining. You know, maybe a bit simplistic. There was parts where it was padded a little too much, but my main gripe with the movie was that it should have focused more on character development, especially with how long they made the movies. But you know, I still enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. You know, it's a movie based on The Hobbit. It's not going to be terrible. But I think that's part of the reason, like, it wasn't nominated for Best Picture, or it didn't get the esteem that The Lord of the Rings had, because it did have faults. And while I like the movie on a personal level, I enjoyed it, and I like fantasy movies, the movie did legitimately have some faults that were kind of too hard to ignore. And it kept it from being a masterpiece. Now, it is a movie, and it's a film series I would recommend. But it's not one of the movies where, you know, you have to see, or it's essential to see. You don't have to even see these movies to enjoy Lord of the Rings. When we watched Lord of the Rings in the theater, none of us had seen The Hobbit because they made these after, and we still had a great time. So, you know, it's kind of a good, it's an entertaining supplemental piece to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's not essential, but I would recommend it. It has its faults, but it's still a damn fine acted movie. It still has a lot of beautiful visual effects and visual scenery. I mean, it's kind of a commercial for New Zealand, let's be honest, but New Zealand is beautiful, so for those reasons alone, I would at least recommend you checking it out. You may not love the movie, but I would still go see it. So, sorry for the rant. I'm Wolfman Jeff. Thank you very much for listening to me go on and on. I appreciate all your love. Thank you.